was just convinced from that point onwards that their word does not mean anything. That it is not about a vote as such, but it is about an agenda that they're there to kind of like, carry out, regardless of what the plankton think. Us being the plankton, us people on the ground.
And to some degree, man, because it's that thing that they don't. No one gets where they are without a lot of handshakes, and it's a hand bigger than theirs. And don't get me wrong, I'm not in any way condoning it, but yeah, they're all ultimately complicit. If we're going to go into like Labour voting territory, though, like the only reason I vote for Labour, and the only reason I would do that is to stop people who were going to be complicit with I see as being more damaging forces, and unnaturally aligned with more damaging forces. Like for example, like Labour is ultimately tied to the unions, and I would rather they were ultimately tied to the unions than tied to big business. And it's not to say that.
What are the unions tied to?
Yeah, exactly. It's not. I'm not in any way saying it's like Cowboys and Indians and good guys and bad guys or whatever. Not that the Cowboys would definitely be the good guys. But yeah, just people where you can see their hands are tied in a less shitty quagmire.
Yeah.
Like
I vote. I mean, I would rather not vote at the moment, but I vote. I vote Labour whenever I vote because I'm an immigrant living in England, and a lot of what they say is in alignment with what I believe. But really, I think that it's all the same things, the same arguments, same lies, same everything. But I see that Russell Brand says that he doesn't vote because in the history of him being a white man in this country, he can always vote. There's never been anybody there to fight for him to vote. Whereas my position is a bit different, where I feel like even though I vote, it's going to be the same thing anyway. I can't not vote because a lot of people fought for me as a woman to vote. Like, really fought hard, people died. As a black person, whatever part of the world I'm in, even in Zimbabwe where I come from, people still had to fight for me to vote. So now I'm here and I've got the right to vote, then I'm going to exercise that right. But it doesn't mean that by me voting means that I actually support what Labour are saying or Labour are doing. But they do represent a part of their, as far as the spectrum of ideology goes, the left and the right, whatever. They seem to be leaning more towards the left, and if anyone's on that, I'm not saying that they are on the left, but they say they are, and everybody else who says they are, they're the only ones who've got enough power to make any kind of difference. Lib Dems are not going to do shit. Look at them now. You can't really praise. But yeah, I hear what Russell Brand is saying, when he says he doesn't vote, but I also think that he can afford not to vote because nobody's ever been there to say, actually, you can't vote. So he doesn't really know the meaning of that. He never would have known what the meaning of that is. But the reasons that he gives for not voting are also quite valid, I think.
And also, I think the things he says can be more influential than a vote.
But that's kind of part of the danger, as we were talking about earlier. And a few people have said that the fact is, people who are going to listen to him are people who would most likely vote towards the left, who may be now compelled not to vote, and thus it strengthens the right-wing vote.
Oh wow!
And I see that as quite that's a potentially really dangerous thing, and it's quite flippant. And I think his general way of presenting himself is one of mixing like the profound and the trivial, and like being flippant about it in such a way as that, why should you listen to me? Why should I'm just come you see my show? Do that part. So that, and I know I found that a little overly offhand, man. Like to throw out some apparently quite inflammatory ideas and to not really maybe think about the repercussions of that. So he doesn't get my vote.
Actually, oh sorry. Actually, a friend of mine wrote an article about him on Facebook that sparked up a lot of controversy because apparently he was like, fair enough, I agree with most of these things, but he's actually really sexist. Sort of, and to also bring that into it, sort of like, okay, like, is this another sort of one of these sort of like sensations where everybody just like feels inspired because they recognize something that they feel themselves in somebody that's doing it in this kind of very theatrical way, which is sort of
and slightly tokenistic as well. It's just like, here's one for the revolution.
And I agree in the sense that I think it's great that anyone is sort of like talking about it, but yeah, there's a sort of we're also still people, and shades are quite grey. So if you having a certain opinion doesn't sort of give you like some sort of, not legitimacy, it's not the right word, but sort of like put you in a place where like, I don't know, there's still a lot of things to consider and stuff like that. But I don't vote. I'm not from this country, but I don't vote in my country. Also, just because, like, yeah, I feel it's just basically, yeah, I understand, like, the argument, because also, like, our Labour Party is, like, becoming less and less Labour and more centre and sort of right-wing, essentially. So we have the same problem in Norway. And if I were going to vote, I don't know, I'd vote for one of the more radical socialist parties, not because I think they'd win, because they wouldn't, but just so that they get a seat in parliament. But even that, I've sort of like had it, because I know those cats are their bullshitters. And I just like really don't give a fuck about them and their stupid ideas. And it's also just that, you know, like, we see the pattern, you know, that like these institutions, they don't give a fuck about us. And are we waiting for someone to come along who does give a fuck, or are we going to just sort of get together and start organizing ourselves and discussing, like, if it were us making these decisions, what would those decisions be? Because either we're going to topple capitalism, or capitalism is going to eat itself. Either way, we're going to have to take responsibility one day. So actually, it's almost like survival, like we should really, not that I'm trying to pitch this like post-apocalyptic, like 10 years from now we're going to be living in sewers, but like, but that we should actually really, because that's what it's going to come to either way. It's like, what are we going to do about it? Because we can see that these people don't even have control, like, they're just trying to best each other. And while they're trying to best each other, they're fucking over everybody. And yeah, so, yeah, basta.
I would say that, like, I think sometimes, like, the political decisions being made are more significant than sometimes we give any political party credit for. For example, the decision to delay repaying whatever debt it is we do have, slightly more than another party. You know, at a real level, that can mean an extra bit of funding for that youth club down the road, or not. You know, I think sometimes we talk in these really sort of big left and right things, and like we don't pay attention enough to the detail of the policies that people are actually offering. So we don't really know what we're voting for, and it's easy to get disillusioned. But I mean, unless you have like a real understanding of the political system and how things do trickle down, when it is those things that are meant to trickle down kind of trip up, and when they don't, that also having an understanding of the structures of local government, that is, you know, the councils, the councillors, you know what I mean, whatever, down the road, and what that can do. So it's like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I don't have the right to say, it's alright.
Sounds great.
Yeah, no, I think I don't have the right to say I'm disillusioned with politics because I don't know enough about it, and I think I would be careful to, you know, I mean, it takes a lot to actually really, yeah, I think the majority of people who vote probably don't know enough. So, fun?
Do you vote?
Do I vote? I did last time.
You vote.
Well, you know, that was like the first time I was allowed to vote, so, you know, I
Likewise.
can't tell you, you know,
Yeah,
give me another 15 years, you know, I'll be like, I was meant to vote Labour last time,
Do you intend to vote in the next one?
yeah, I think I need to know more.
I think
By not voting, you're not disillusioned with politics, and to like you don't have to know everything about politics to be doing and like involved in politics. Like, just, I mean, taking like that youth club down the road like is gonna get run by like people like getting together and actually fucking like getting together and working together as a group and running it. Like, it's not gonna get run by these MPs who like whatever they say, that's probably not what they're actually gonna do, and whatever policies they have, that within it will be hidden some other agenda. Like this whole gagging bill, it's written so that apparently it's better for MPs. I mean, it's billed as if it's like going to stop MPs being able to be like lobbied by huge corporations.